It's Clarice, this is Clarice Reads, and today I'm going to talk to you about my reading goal to reread more books this year. If you're not aware, I'm doing this thing where I'm filming videos for every single one of the reading goals that I set for myself this year. So if you're interested in watching the other videos or watching the video where I talked about my reading goals at the beginning of this year, I'll leave a link to those things down below. So as previously mentioned, one of the goals I set for myself this year was to reread more books. Specifically, I had planned to read one book every single month. But later I decided to take a little pressure off of myself to be consistent in reading one at least every month, and just said that I would try to read 12 books total this year that are rereads. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to reread 12 books this year. I was only able to reread 9, but I'm pretty happy with that. And those 9 books are the following: The Fellowship of the Ring, the first part of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the first and second books in the Scott Pilgrim series by Brian Lee O'Malley, The Little Prince by I really need to Google how to pronounce his name one of these days. The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, the first book in the Wicked Year series by Gregory Maguire, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the first book in this series by Douglas Adams, Elmer by Jerry Alangilan, and yes, I know that I read this for the first time this year, and I also reread it for the first time this year, and Reality Boy by A.S. King. So as you can see, I only reread 9 books, but I was able to learn a lot and gain a lot from reading those 9 books. First of all, I was able to reread books that I already considered my favorites to further solidify the fact that yes, these really are favorites. No, it wasn't just a one-time thing and I was just in a good mood when I read it. You know, like The Book Thief, which is a book that I kind of worried that maybe I just read at a good time. Maybe I was just overwhelmed by it the first time I read it and I was really young. But no, I reread it and I still love it. So it really is a favorite. And also Elmer, which as I mentioned, I read for the first time this year. But I also had to reread this year because one day I just felt like it, so I reread it. And it's still great, so I love it. But secondly, there were even more books that I reread and enjoyed so much more the second time around. Of course, there's The Fellowship of the Ring, which is a book that I remember being bored by the first time I read it. Please don't hate me. I was young, I didn't even like fantasy as a genre back then. I didn't get it. Now I get it, and this time I was really able to appreciate the world building and the characters more. Now I'm actually excited to read the rest of the series, which I wasn't at all before. And there's Scott Pilgrim. I remember being kind of about these books the first time I read them. I'm not sure what changed. Maybe I just knew what to expect this time around, and so I was able to just take it for what it was and have fun reading it. I don't know. I just know I enjoyed it more the second time around, and I'm really glad that I was able to read it and give it a proper chance. Though I still haven't finished the series. I still have only read these first 2 volumes. The book that I feel like I had the biggest change of heart about when I reread it was Wicked, which I kind of expected because I knew that I read it at the wrong time. I knew that I read it with the wrong expectations, so I really wanted to reread this book because I knew I would appreciate it so much more, and I did. I actually wrote a whole Goodreads review, not about the book itself, but more about my experience rereading it, which I'll link down below in case you're interested. But basically, I really had to push myself through this book the first time I read it, but the second time, it's a new favorite now. I really was able to appreciate the world building and the characters and the politics and the magic and everything so much more now that I'm more mature and now that I knew that it's nothing like the musical. And the last book that I had like a really big change of heart about when I read it, you know, with Scott Pilgrim and The Fellowship of the Ring, I went from being to being like, yay, it's good. But this book I actually disliked. I wasn't just about, I disliked it. And that book is Reality Boy by A.S. King. I remember being so annoyed by it the first time I read it, and maybe I'll go more into why and how I feel about this book in a future wrap-up. But basically, I just really didn't get it the first time I read it. All of these people just seemed annoying because they didn't seem realistic to me. But now that I've grown up, and not that I've been through more stuff, but more that I've met people who have been through pretty bad things that reminded me a lot of the main character here, I know that families can be really messed up, and I get it now. I get it. I was able to appreciate this book now, and I wasn't able to at all before. So I'm glad that I gave it a second chance. And the last insight that I got out of this rereading goal, which I also feel is the most important, is that rereading made it easier for me to understand differing opinions. Because rereading these books and seeing how different my experience with it and my opinion of that book could be in one read as compared to another one, and I'm just one person, makes it so much easier to understand how two people can experience a book completely different ways, have completely different opinions, and have both of those opinions and experiences be completely valid. It used to be difficult for me to not feel that initial gut reaction of, I feel personally offended when I hear someone bashing a book that I really enjoyed. In the same sense, it's sometimes hard to again fight that initial gut reaction to feel superior to someone who really enjoyed a book that you disliked. And that's messed up. Even though that initial reaction doesn't linger, it's terrible that I feel it at all. But rereading these books and seeing, oh, I hated this book when I was younger, I love it now. Is my opinion when I was younger any less valid than my opinion now? No. Understanding that makes it easier for me to understand that people can have different opinions. People can experience books different ways because people experience life differently. Not everyone's going to interact with a book the same way, and that's great. And that's totally okay. And everyone's opinions are valid. It's great that I finally sort of have that ingrained in my brain, and I'm glad that I was able to reread books and be able to understand that better because of it. So overall, in terms of numbers, I technically did not meet this goal, but I was able to gain so much out of the experience, which is the most important part. And I promise you, this isn't a reading goal that I'm just leaving behind next year. No, I'm going to prioritize rereading even more now. I'm really glad that I was able to gain so much from rereading books this year. So how often do you reread books? And have you gained any insights from any rereads or rereading experiences? Feel free to share it with me in the comment section down below. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!